Many of the Euphoria characters have a hidden identity, a secret self who does things their real life persona perhaps would never do, or at least that's what the people who know them in their real lives think. Being that this is a show mainly focused on high schoolers, the internet plays a huge role in the plot points and the development of the characters, and what better place to have a hidden identity than on the internet? Having a hidden online identity means that they can explore the hidden aspects of themselves that aren't accepted or seen by people in their real day-to-day lives. Online, their hidden traits are praised and or accepted. Kat Hernandez, played brilliantly by Barbie Ferreira, is a great example of how the hidden identity she's cultivated online has shaped and influenced her real life identity. But what happens when the online communities that accept us misguide us into mistaking fantasy for reality? And what happens when the internet, which we've turned to in order to explore ourselves, shapes us into someone we think we're meant to be and not who we actually are? In this video, I will be discussing how the internet shapes our public and private identity and our perceived desirability, particularly in young adulthood. Mark Twain famously was quoted as saying, "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why." Essentially, human beings are on a quest to answer the following questions. Who am I? What was I meant to do in this life? It can take a lifetime to answer these questions, and the answers can change over time. Unfortunately, as a young adult, the adult in your life can constantly remind you that you don't really know the answers to these questions, and thus make you feel pressure to know the answers right now. They love asking you to talk about yourself and what you want to major in and what career you want to have for the rest of your life, as if you only ever have one career for the rest of your life. Meanwhile, no one has explained how I do my income taxes or what a 401k, IRA, Roth, NBA 2K is. Sorry. I'm calm. Suddenly your dreams about the future aren't what you're gonna do on your next summer vacation or how it's gonna feel when you finally move out your parents' house. Now you're gonna have to think about how you're gonna make a living for the rest of your life, and where you're going to commit the next few years of your life if you choose to go to a college or university, which you will take out thousands of dollars of loans to pay for. Yay! And Kat gets it. Kat gets it because in season 2, episode 3 of Euphoria, while meeting Ethan's parents, Ethan's mom says, "Catherine, why do they like to use your whole government name?" It's just Kat. Anyways, Ethan's mom says, "Catherine, tell me about yourself." Kat basically has what I like to call an error 404 moment and says she's still trying to figure that out. Aren't we all, Kat? Aren't we all?
Wow.
To make matters more difficult, societal standards and the people around us can make it harder for us to truly express our most authentic selves or to experiment with who we want to be. You know, if I dress a certain way, will people look at me funny? If I say that I'm interested in that weird thing, will I be ostracized? Sometimes we see this with famous children or teenagers who transition into famous adults. Ariana Grande and Miley Cyrus come to mind because the image they had as child stars was shed for a more sexual one. But another example is Chloe Bailey. There has been some hateration and holleration in the Chloe Bailey dancery. In the past year, Chloe has been expressing her sexuality more freely online and in her performances, which has garnered some criticism, some of which is objectively valid. But one criticism I've seen people online say is, "Chloe, this is not the real you. Why are you acting like this? I know that this is not who you really are." Okay, I don't know Chloe personally. You don't know Chloe personally. Well, actually, technically, you may know Chloe personally. Do you know Chloe personally? Because if you do, can you ask her when the album is coming out? Okay, most of you probably don't know Chloe personally. If you have an issue with the execution of her performances and what have you, then that's fine. But to tell someone you don't know that their behavior is not true to who they are after they said that their behavior is true to who they are, I don't know. The math's not mathing for me. For me, I wasn't good at math. So, you know, maybe that's just a me problem. But this video is not about Chloe. My point is that when you experiment or shift your expression in a way that other people get offended or find it bothersome or just don't really like it and would prefer it if you toned it down, you may get some criticism. There's always going to be people who don't like you. Luckily, there is a magical place where we can cultivate whatever image we want and find people who understand us. And these people we find, these communities we become a part of, never have to know who we really are. And will never bring up how we used to behave or how we used to look. Can anybody guess where this magical place is? Ding, 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 it's the internet. Not that one. It's the internet! And the best part is that if you get tired of your online image or you embarrass yourself, you can just disappear and create a whole new identity. Online, there are an infinite number of yous ready to live out aspects of yourself that no one in your real life may ever see. On the internet, you can go from invisible to invincible. So how exactly does this relate to Euphoria's Kat Hernandez? In Euphoria, we see Kat do this very thing, shedding her, I guess you could say, more conservative public image to one that aligns with her online image where she expresses her sexuality more freely. Let's dive into Kat's online self versus her real self. In season 1, episode 3, we flash back to an 11-year-old Kat. She returns from a family vacation but discovers that she has gained weight. When she goes back to school, she tries to hide her weight gain from this kid named Daniel who is dating her. And I put dating in quotations because she was 11. But unfortunately later that day, Daniel ends up breaking up with her. This is a pivotal moment in Kat's development because she has now correlated her weight gain to being undesirable to men. And of course, we can safely assume that Kat grew up seeing fat phobia in the media and may have internalized that in pop culture. Bigger women aren't seen as sexually desirable compared to their thinner counterparts. In a 2019 panel with the stars of Euphoria that took place at the ATX TV festival, Barbie said the following: "Being a sexual being, I think, is incredibly hard to grasp when people don't see you in that way. Kat just wants to feel like she's in power and that people see her as a sexual being. I think it's very personal to me because I felt those similar feelings as a chubby girl in high school. It's kind of very hard to feel like you are worthy of attention in that way." This desire to express her sexuality becomes a major part of Kat's development in season 1. Don't get me started on what happens to Kat in season 2 because it's nothing. It's pretty much almost nothing. See, I started. You got me started. I'm gonna stop though. I'm gonna stop. Early on in the show, teenage Kat's sexual expression is mostly happening. Early on in the show, teenage Kat's sexual expression is mostly happening online, since she writes and publishes very smutty and popular fanfiction on Tumblr. However, her followers don't technically know what she looks like. It's not until Kat sees comments posted under a sex tape that was recorded and posted online without her consent, and she's a minor, that she begins to realize she is desirable to the opposite sex. The comments under the video has tons of views, and the comments are praising her and her body. Kat then becomes an online sex worker and eventually begins to express her sexual nature in real life more often, both in the way she dresses and the way she approaches relationships with men. This brings me to my next point. The internet is a tool for refinement. You can try out your new online identity like a new pair of jeans. Do they make your butt look good? Are the legs too long? Are they too baggy? Do you need to size down? Dark wash or light? Away from the eyes of your real life friends and family, you can grow more comfortable with this other side of yourself and make adjustments. Why show off an ill-fitting pair of jeans when you can step out of the house with a well-tailored denim that suits you perfectly? And that's why this video is sponsored by... Just kidding, it's not sponsored. I just made this up. I just used my hidden identity as a marketing genius to make you think that this was sponsored, but it's not. In Kat's case, her hidden internet identity as a sex worker eventually opens her eyes to her desirability and empowers her to begin to experiment with this newfound power in real life. By the way, disclaimer, I am not endorsing nor am I supportive of Kat's online activities because she's a minor. I just want to put that out there. Okay. Let's take another example at refinement and becoming more comfortable with the hidden aspect of your identity. E.L. James. Now, you may know E.L. James as the author of the best-selling 50 Shades novels. But back in 2009, when I was but a wee teenager, E.L. James was known to the readers of Twilight fan fiction as Snow Queen's Ice Dragon. Snow Queens was author of the very popular Master of the Universe fan fiction. Eventually, Snow Queens changed the Twilight references in Master of the Universe and published the series as original stories under the new 50 Shades name. Eventually, James signed a 7-figure book deal for the 50 Shades trilogy. By starting out online, James was able to build confidence in her writing, realized that there was a very large audience for her work, and potentially, in theory, improve upon her writing over time. From what I've heard, the writing ain't good, okay? But in theory, she could have potentially improved on her writing over time. I don't know. What's also interesting is when your online identity no longer becomes fully yours. Your followers will begin to project and add on to your online image through assumptions. And you know what they say about assumptions? You don't? If you don't, just Google it. Just look it up. Okay, there's a saying that when you as an artist release art into the public, it no longer becomes fully yours. The people who consume your work are free to interpret it based on their experiences. Ultimately, the story around your art evolves and will mean different things to different people. The same can be said for your identity. It starts out as a way for you to express your sexuality, turns into someone's salvation or their personal punching bag. The narrative they've created around who you are becomes more powerful than the reality. Even if you refute the assumption, people are so stuck on the narrative that they've created that they won't even believe the truth. This is an excerpt from a February 2022 interview Barbie Ferreira did with Who What Wear. Having existed publicly online for pretty much her whole adult life, Ferreira is no stranger to the pressure of being this person who loves themselves, as she describes. It's so funny that people just assume that. What, did I say that? I never said that. You guys just say that. You posted that on me, she adds. Projecting the descriptor of confident onto plus-size women is quite common, and I found a few articles that talk about this. In an article for Cosmopolitan titled, "Calling plus-size women confident is actually an insult," Cecily Bowen, author of Bad Fat Black Girl, Notes from a Trapped Feminist, writes about an experience where she was out dancing one night when a stranger walked up to her to compliment her on being so confident. Cecily writes, "I was meant to receive her words as a compliment, to be grateful for the validation, even though I hadn't done anything different than dozens of other people in the room. Except I wasn't complimented because the reason she had singled me out was obvious. I was the only fat girl out on the dance floor. In some ways, it's analogous to being told you're pretty for a big girl, which adds up to plus-size women being applauded for having the courage to do things that no one thinks twice about when smaller people do them, like yoga or traveling abroad. In this case, assumptions are being made because of someone's appearance, and is more of a signal that the person with the assumption has internalized fat phobia / anti-fat bias. Oftentimes, the narrative your followers create to fill in the blanks on who you are says more about them than it does about you. If they love you, they continue to paint stories and tales that paint you in a positive light, even going so far as to excuse behavior that is objectively harmful. And if they hate you, then anything you say or do will be used against you in the court of Twitter. And in the court of Twitter, everyone is judge, jury, and executioner." Ooh, that's dark. In another example, Billie Eilish's body has been the subject of a lot of scrutiny because she often wears baggy clothes on the red carpet. The general public is not used to this level of modesty from young mainstream music artists, female music artists, and anytime Billie deviates from this uniform, it garners a lot of attention. In a 2020 GQ interview, Billie states the following: "Here's a bomb for you. I've never felt desired. My past boyfriends never made me feel desired. None of them. And it's a big thing in my life that I feel I've never been physically desired by somebody. So I dress the way I dress, as I don't like to think of you guys, anyone, everyone, judging it or the size of it, but that doesn't mean that I won't wake up one day and decide to wear a tank top, which I have done before. Sometimes I dress like a boy, sometimes I dress like a swaggy girl, and sometimes I feel trapped by this persona that I've created because sometimes I think people view me not as a woman." Unlike like on the internet where you can ultimately maintain anonymity and reshape your persona at any time, your external public identity or persona can remain rigid or difficult to change. After all, you are asking multiple people to see you in a different light. Meanwhile, your internal world is more fluid and can operate on a spectrum that goes in a million different directions. The public persona doesn't always account for the fact that we as humans throughout our lives are asking that $1,000,000 Mark Twain question: who am I? And when you're constantly being reminded of who you used to be or who the public has decided you are, it creates tension. You start asking yourself questions like, is there something wrong with me because I'm not matching up to people's image of me? Am I supposed to be live, laugh, love, confident? Should I regret the public image I used to embody? The internet can shape us into someone we think we're meant to be rather than who we actually are. More so embodying the fantasy or the illusion rather than the reality. In any case, being on the internet, whether you are innocently scrolling on social media or enjoying content that is more taboo, means not taking anything at face value and maintaining an air of skepticism. It's all an illusion. Nothing is real. We're in the Matrix. Keanu was right. Also, identity can both be empowering and ensnaring. It has the capacity to motivate you, to encourage you to live up to the person you've always wanted to be, to allow you to design your ideal self. Isn't that what we do when we have role models? People we want to model ourselves after. But on the flip side, it can feel like a trap, especially when it evolves into something independent of who you actually are internally.